Just off the Texas coast sits a unique beach town marked with salty vibes and sun-soaked memories, Port Aransas. It's a place where family traditions unfold naturally, and beauty lies both in island views and the unhurried moments between adventures. One visit and you'll see why generations of Texans have anchored their traditions to the island life. Start your new favorite family tradition in Port Aransas, Texas. Head to visitportaransas.com and plan your trip to Houston's beach. The largest pop culture festival in Texas is back at the George R. Brown Convention Center from June 20th to June 22nd, Comic Palooza. And there is so much to do at Comic Palooza, so dress up as your favorite character. I'll probably be in a Batman costume, and check out the different exhibitors on the show floor, stop by the Okashi Japanese arcade area, or visit one of the many celebrity panels. Get your tickets now at comicpalooza.com/CityCastHouston. Today on CityCast Houston, it's Friday, so I'm breaking down the biggest stories of the week with Pulitzer Prize finalist Evan Mintz and Houston Chronicle City Hall reporter Abby Church. And stay tuned because during the conversation, I have a fun tip from today's sponsor, Comic Palooza. It's Friday, June 6th. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Good morning, Evan. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are y'all doing?
Doing all right. Abby, what's up? How's everything going?
I am exhausted after a very long budget week, but I am always happy to be on CityCast, especially with Evan.
Yeah, Wednesday, you were there for almost 9 hours, I think a little bit more than 9 hours, and all eyes were on City Hall because Mayor Whitmire's budget did pass, but that's where I want to start, okay? Obviously, it passed. We'll talk about that, but there was a lot of drama that came with it. There were protests. There were disruptions. What happened on Wednesday?
So Northeast Action Collective, they're a storm advocacy group that represents the northeast side of Houston. They were created after Hurricane Harvey hit. And basically what they do is they just help residents in the aftermath of everything. And they do a bunch of advocacy work, especially around drainage. They have been pretty vocal about their distaste for the budget, especially with all the cuts and consolidations that have been happening in the administration. As you know, the city was dealing with a pretty large deficit. So we have had to make a whole bunch of cuts, and they are not super happy about that in terms of what it'll mean for city government. And they had a press conference ahead of the city council meeting, but then they packed the chambers, and it got to a point when the council members were presenting their amendments where it got pretty boisterous, and people started saying outwardly their distaste for the budget. And there was a big sign that they were waving around. I believe it was Houston says no to Mayor Whitmire's undemocratic budget. And then a big swath of City Hall security officers ended up having to clear the chamber. So it basically just left members of the press there and City Hall staffers in the room.
And y'all, can we talk about the irony here? Because as this was all happening, there was a storm that moved over downtown, and on the East End, guess what happened? There was flooding to the point where a couple of cars were underwater. Like, the irony about all of this is like we're arguing for better drainage. We're arguing for better streets as money's being taken away from that for this year, because it will eventually get done, right? Like, the settlement is that the money is just going to be spread out that the city has to spend on the drainage. But the irony here, y'all, what? Like, that was wild.
Yeah. It was definitely one of the most colorful budget meetings I've ever been to in my life. I've been covering government now for, I think, about 5 years. But yeah, that one is top of the list, most exciting.
I mean, I think that Charles Blaine is a bit of a conservative commentator, pointed out that even if you don't agree with a lot of the protesters, sometimes it's healthy to have citizens just show up and yell at their elected officials. That said, the mayor is sort of touting this as a big, successful bill where they were able to help balance the budget and give more spending to law enforcement and fire departments. And we just got some efficiencies in the other departments. But I got to say, on a good year, you never really have to interact with the cop. You never really have to interact with the firefighter. But you interact with your garbage pickup guy every week. And you want him to be well paid and doing his job. And I'm just worried that a lot of these efficiencies are really just cuts to services and that the city is going to suffer because of them. But we're really not going to see the consequences of it until the next year.
Yeah, Abby, let's talk about that. As this
Yeah.
budget passed, there were a lot of cuts. What stood out to you in this budget? Because you took a deep dive into this. You were looking at this, obviously being a City Hall reporter, but there were a lot of people upset with how funds were being cut from key departments. With just one number, the Department of Neighborhoods, that had the largest cut. It's going to be operating at about $7.4 million, which is half the budget it had last year.
Yeah.
And this was from your reporting. So there's going to be some inefficiencies from this.
Right. The whole entire thing with that too. I mean, like, time is going to be the big thing here that's going to tell whether or not it's actually going to impact city services. I know the Whitmire administration has said that it's not going to, but yeah, I mean, that is the big concern among everybody, right? It's like whether or not my garbage pickup is going to get worse. Am I going to get a better response time from 311 as a result of all this? But the budget, just at a glance, it's about $7 billion. So there hasn't really been much that changed from the initial pitch for the budget a couple weeks ago. But yeah, Department of Neighborhoods did get the biggest cut. They're going to be operating with about $7.4 million. And a lot of that has been attributed to consolidations in code enforcement. So code enforcement for single family buildings was housed under the Department of Neighborhoods, and Public Works was the one that did all the code enforcement for commercial buildings. And the administration basically looked at that and they were like, why are we housing code enforcement for buildings into different departments? So what we're going to do is just take it and move it under Public Works. So that on paper looks like it makes sense, but I guess time is going to be the true teller of whether or not that is something that's going to work. But yeah, no, definitely when you're looking at that budget and seeing them operating with half that budget, it does kind of make you wonder what exactly is going to happen there.
Yeah. One last thing on the budget. How is this going to impact everyday Houstonians, right? No new fees, no tax rate increase. So that was the big thing everybody was watching out for. Obviously, everything that we just talked about in terms of services, we'll see how that plays out. But I know that was top of mind for a lot of Houstonians, and it looks like things are going to be okay, but let's see what happens.
Yeah. I guess one thing I would note about a tax rate increase, so the city has until October to finalize that. So they are going to be getting home valuations back. And I know one thing that Mayor Whitmire said over and over again is we have to ask Houstonians what kind of city they want to live in, right? And when you're looking at especially the property tax argument, I know that is something that's been going on for years, right? But especially since Whitmire took office and we're dealing with all these financial challenges and people are saying, hey, you're going to have to raise taxes eventually. And of course, he's countering with, well, we need to cut all the waste and abuse first. So I guess that is going to be the next big argument here as we're getting closer to October and that deadline encroaches.
I mean, something to keep in mind whenever we talk about property taxes in Houston is that property tax rate in Houston is actually pretty low. The Baker Institute just put out a report comparing major cities across Texas and found that, Houston's property tax rate is way below almost every other major Texas city. And they say, oh, well, that's just not comparing apples to apples. Well, even if you look at a property tax revenue per capita, which tries to equalize everything, we're still below average. So we have some room, if you just want to say, well, we at least want to be at average, you have some room to raise the property tax rate. And that's because we have had a revenue cap on property tax revenues for a long time that forces the city to keep lowering that rate.
Going off of Evan's point there, the one thing that Houstonians really have to be aware of is when you're looking at the general fund, that is the fund that funds all of the city services that you interact with the most, right? It funds police, it funds the fire department, it funds some of Public Works, which deals with your water, it funds solid waste, which is dealing with your trash, obviously. And all of that comes from your property taxes. And the argument that we've seen consistently in Houston is people don't want to pay more for services that they're complaining are suffering, and one thing that you need in order to make those services better is more money. So that's the argument that keeps coming up.
Abby, what's next with the budget? I know City Controller Chris Hollins is now going to get a chance to dig into this. There has been a lot of tension. It's an angle of the budget that to me, excites me, what's going to happen now. But is that just the next step or what else is happening?
Yeah. So the controller's role in the budget is a little bit limited. He basically, all he does is just certify whether or not the funds are available. So that's the next step there. And he just basically has to give it the rubber stamp. But the property tax argument is what I'm assuming is probably going to be coming next. I know his office has been pretty adamant about the city spending more money than it's bringing in, and the need to raise property taxes. So I'm assuming there's going to be more headbutting there about whether or not we're going to raise property taxes or we're going to keep them the same.
And I'll sum it up just to kind of give you what's been happening at City Hall. The tension between the mayor and council member Abby Kamen had this quote yesterday, and you had this in your story. I just want to leave the listeners with this. She voted against the budget, by the way. She was not in favor of it. And she said, "I respect you, Mayor. There's a lot of hard work that has been put into this by city staff. And I hope that your administration will not seek retribution against the district and our residents." That's not a healthy quote. That is like, that scares me. And you can sense there's a lot of tension at City Hall. Evan, what else happened this week with the city of Houston and pensions?
Well, behind the scenes, without anybody really noticing, the legislature unanimously rolled back the city's pension reforms partially. And that could have a major impact on the budget. Basically, they added back in something called drop accounts, deferred retirement option programs. And what this does, it lets you, instead of retiring and starting to collect your pension payments, you can just keep working, but still collect your pensions even while you're working. And it goes into a separate account where the money earns interest. And then when you finally do retire, you collect all that money in a single lump sum. And it's incredibly expensive. Nothing like this occurs anywhere in the private sector. And so when the city did its reforms for pensions, because we were more than $8 billion in the hole on what we owed on pensions, we got rid of them. But last year, the mayor said he kind of wanted to add it back in. And then lo and behold, it swung through the legislature without anybody saying anything. And now it's out, and you've got financial experts and city hall budget experts saying that, quote, "that's stupid." Like, that's from Craig Mason, the retired actuary, who's a consultant for the city hall for multiple mayors, just pointing out that the city is moving backwards on this stuff. It's mind-boggling. Now, defenders will say, well, we need this stuff to keep people from retiring, to keep them in the fire department, to keep them in the police department. But if that's true, it's not well structured, because what it does is allows people to retire quicker, the way they added it back in, even while adding more to the pension. So you pay out more and they can get it faster. That doesn't make any sense. They're all saying, well, the way it's structured, it's going to pay for itself. It's not actually going to add to the city's finances. It's not going to add to the pension obligations. But all of that makes a lot of really sunny presumptions. And when things are going well, is when you want to prepare for when things go poorly. Because, the city relies on these pensions earning at 7% year over year. And those drop accounts where they earn interest are going to earn at 2.5% annually. But what happens if returns are bad? What happens if it's invested poorly? What happens if something goes wrong? That is how those pension obligations skyrocket. And that's what we saw when pensions were given a boost back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And according to the actuarial estimates at the time, like, oh, these things aren't going to get out of control. And then what do you know? They did, specifically because the city didn't do the rigorous assessments or city council hearings to determine what was going to happen. And you have city council members now saying they had no idea this was coming through. Basically, the legislature forced a change on the city without the city having any say in it. And the last time we saw a big pension boost, it took 3 mayors 15 years to get it under control. And every dollar that goes into those pensions is a dollar that can't go to something else. So I am very worried about this. And it's kind of maddening to see the current mayoral administration roll back some of the most important things that the last mayoral administration did. And I'm also very disappointed in a lot of the fiscal conservatives who are typically not big fans of pensions, who said that the last pension reform, they criticized it because it didn't go far enough. And now we're undoing it. Where are those people today? It just shows it really, really is. This is a huge change going down at City Hall. It's a huge policy that's going through with zero debate, zero oversight, zero accountability.
Abby, was this talked about at all at City Hall this week?
Yeah, that was a big point of contention early on in the meeting. I mean, there were a lot of council members who were pretty miffed by it and trying to figure out what exactly this is going to mean for the city, especially in terms of, I mean, when you're looking at the budget too, I mean, the administration has just touted, oh, we eliminated the deficit, we have cut back on all this spending. And then when you have this pension reform that eliminated an $8.2 billion debt down to, I believe it's 1.8 billion now. I mean, that's a pretty sizable cut to the pensions there. And that was something that needed to be fixed. And I think there are a lot of people who are wondering now what exactly is going to happen next and whether the administration knew this was coming down the pike.
Wow.
So that is going to be what we're going to be looking into next.
Now, I really think that Sylvester Turner does not get enough credit for the pension reform. And the fact that he didn't get credit for it means that people aren't afraid to undo the very important reforms that he passed.
Evan, how does this play out? Is this going to impact the budget next year? Is this something that impacts the city for the next few years? How bad do you think it could get?
I mean, this is the thing where you start to see the effects after a few years, usually. But one of the concerns is that if things start to get out of control, city council can't just vote to change it. They have to go back up to the legislature. And then if they do that, the police union, the fire union, they're going to try to stop it because they really benefit from this stuff. And frankly, the last stats I've seen show that a lot of police officers, a lot of firefighters don't even live in the city. So if the city starts to get in real financial trouble and services start to suffer, they don't feel the hurt of it. This is a real classic policy problem where the gains are concentrated and the harms are diffuse. And it's really hard to get everyone in Houston to pull together to say, wow, this is going to make our taxes go up and hurt our services, to get them to pull in the same direction. But it's real easy to get the police union and the fire union to say, we want to pass this and we want to stop anyone from undoing it.
Music is one of my favorite things in the world, and on June 21st, we're celebrating Make Music Day in the Arts District. This global celebration is a great way to bring the whole family out to enjoy live music with local musicians right off Washington Avenue in the Arts District. Local Arts District businesses, artists, and community partners are coming together to make this an unforgettable annual event. And here's the best part, it's free. There's going to be free musical performances the whole family can enjoy. Join the global celebration of music in Arts District Houston on June 21st. If you're a local musician or venue, register to participate at makemusicday.org/Houston, and be sure to follow them on Instagram to find a musical performance near you at Arts District HOU. Again, all events are free and open to the public, so come ready to enjoy live music on Make Music Day. I know we're all thinking about things to do this summer, and a place you need to put on your list is the Contemporary Arts Museum Houston, aka CAM. Located in the Museum District, CAM is one of my favorites because it's great for kids and adults, and it's free. Their current exhibit is one you don't want to miss. It's called Out of Stock, and get this, it was created and curated by Houston area teenagers through CAM's 14th Teen Council. I was blown away by all of the incredible art that hits on themes of consumerism, identity, and more. And this weekend, CAM is celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Teen Council program with a 2-day anniversary bash that includes a fashion show, clothes swap, hands-on art making, live music, and more. This event is for all ages, from teens to families, and it's free. Learn more and register for the event at camh.org. With the city this week, we had some big news regarding Mayor Whitmire's administration. What happened?
So Chris Newport, he's the chief of staff for Whitmire. The chief of staff, if you don't know, that's a person that basically serves as the eyes and ears of the administration. Make sure all the ducks are in a row, is the leader on any sort of policy change in the city. I mean, he is basically the one who is calling all the shots. He is leaving the administration after a year and a half. He is the only person who has held the position so far under Mayor Whitmire's team. He hasn't announced yet who he's going to be hiring to fill that role next. I guess that is what everybody is waiting on next. But yeah, definitely a pretty huge exit for the administration.
Why is he leaving?
So what he told me is that he just wants to spend more time with his family. I know the job itself is pretty demanding. I mean, the one thing that you don't really see with City Hall is all the work that people are putting in behind the scenes to make sure that everything is running smoothly, making sure that when there is tension, it gets kind of knocked back a little bit. But yeah, I mean, like that was pretty squarely on Chris's shoulders. So yeah, he just told me that he wanted to spend more time with his family. So that's ultimately why he stepped back.
Okay. And Chris Newport, by the way, served in the same role for Mayor Anise Parker as well. So this wasn't his first run at things, but man, that's a big thing. And now Mayor Whitmire is going to be looking for a new chief of staff. Evan, do you think there's something else going on behind the scenes here? Or is it just family?
Listen, I'm not going to speculate, but I'm going to say, if the chief of staff is the mayor's eyes and ears, the next chief of staff needs to be someone with really big ears, because the mayor himself has said that sometimes he doesn't like to listen to people who disagree with him. And that's a really important part of the job, is to listen to everyone in the city. So you need someone who's got the ears, who are willing to hear the dissenters, willing to hear the disagreement, and bring earnest disagreements up to the mayor.
All right, I want to head to HISD because we got some huge news regarding the state's takeover of Houston Independent School District. And we learned that the Texas Education Agency is going to be extending the takeover for another 2 years. Mike Morath, the commissioner, announced that after visiting HISD, looked at everything and said, yeah, things are going great and things are looking good with the person that I put in charge and the board that I put in charge. But still, we need 2 more years to really, really hit this home. So here's what happened, all right? Mike Morath is going to take 4 members from the board that he put into place after the state's takeover and replace them with 4 other board members. Mike Miles, who is the superintendent put in by the state, will also remain in charge, even though his contract is over in 2026, and the takeover is now going to run through 2027. That is when a elected board can come back into place and represent the community. This is incredible. So the guy who put in charge the new board and put in charge Mike Miles gets to decide that they get to keep going and not a third party. How does this work? This is incredible. I don't get it at all. I know there are laws and rules and policies put in place, but why not have somebody else review what's happening at HISD? What if things aren't going that great? What if a third party found that, no, it's not going that great? Then why should Mike Miles continue? But the guy who put him in charge gets to decide that, oh, things are going great. Make it make sense. This is crazy.
I mean, the whole process has seemed like this sprawling, expanding mess to me. When there were concerns about failing schools, like, I get it. Focus on those failing schools. Said, well, we have to look at the feeders. Like, well, I guess that kind of makes sense. But then they started touching on all these schools that didn't have any problems. They're moving the goalposts. The data is questionable. It's hard to do apples to apples comparisons. And frankly, we have this thing that's shifting from an emergency moment to routine. And philosophically, I have deep concerns about this sort of taxation without representation. You pay property taxes to the schools. Whoever you are, you pay in one way or another through owning a home or through your rent. And so you should have some say in how those property tax dollars are spent. And with a state takeover, you really don't. And I find that to be un-American.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was really interesting about this was a replacement of the board members. I believe they ended up keeping the president, but they ended up replacing the other 4 on the board. And I believe it was the vice president of the board that was saying, we were voting yes to everything, but we were asking questions. So maybe that's a reason why we ended up getting kicked off at the end of the day. And I just thought that is super, super fascinating.
Yeah, the 4 board members, by all accounts, were the ones that were pushing back a little bit. They were asking more questions. Some of them voted against the budget as well. So there was a little bit of tension there, but they were put in by Mike Morath, who is, again, the TEA commissioner. And then he was just like, no, you know what? Guess what I can do? I can just replace them. And if Mike Miles tells me that, hey, I don't like these board members, he can make the call to do it. I don't know if that happened, but it sure seems like it, that it was basically, hey, I don't like these people. Let's get rid of them. Okay, let's do it. Who's going to check us here? This is where it gets frustrating for parents, for students, for teachers, for principals. Have somebody else come in and review what's been happening. I don't think it's fair. Everything isn't fair, what's happened so far with HISD, but it's very, very unfair that the people who made the changes get to decide if the changes are working.
Mm-hmm. I think there's some interesting parallelism between what we're talking about at City Hall and what we're talking about at HISD, that people are afraid that if you criticize those in power, even if you vote for them a lot of the time, asking those questions is going to lead to retribution. And punishing dissenting views is how you get bad systems. You don't want yes men. You want alternative views. You want to know what's going wrong.
Yeah, that's it. Like, it's okay to have discussions. It's okay to debate what's happening. And it's okay to, at the end of the day, have the best outcome for your constituents, for your students, your teachers, your principals, all that stuff. It's okay. So again, June of 2027 is when we get the next update, and the TEA can put back the board that was elected and represent the community instead of put in by Mike Morath. All right, y'all, state ledge time, because everything wrapped up in Austin this week, and there was a lot of stuff coming down the pike in terms of bills, laws. Will Governor Abbott ban THC as of this taping right now? It has not been signed. There's a lot of drama with that. But what stood out to y'all from the 89th state legislature? Evan, I'll start with you.
I think that something that really stood out is that here's some really good policies that passed through. And you had a lot of partisan red meat. You had a lot of Republican bills that had kind of gotten gummed up over the years that finally went through, private school vouchers, things like that. But behind the scenes, we got some really good bills. Like, we're going to have on the ballot to vote for $1 billion a year over 20 years to spend on water infrastructure, new water supplies, desalination plants, replacing old infrastructure, flood mitigation projects. Like, these are good things that we need. And there's no real political constituency to argue for investing in the future. It takes leadership. And groups like Texas 2036 did a really good job of getting stuff like this before lawmakers and getting it through. So I think that's just good news for Texas. We also saw some really good housing bills got through. Senate Bill 15, which makes it so that it's easier to build Houston-style townhouses in new developments, passed through. Senate Bill 840, which makes it easier to do commercial to residential conversions, passed through. That's great. And my favorite, the single stair bill got through to make it easier to build small apartment complexes with single stairs. This is just good stuff that really sets a model for a lot of other parts of the country where they're struggling to get these sorts of bills through. States like California, New York, where they have much tougher housing markets than we do, much more expensive, but somehow Texas is passing this through where they're running into trouble.
Yeah, and to hear just exactly how those housing bills are going to impact the city and Texas even more, Evan, we did an episode on it. I'm going to link that in our show notes, and you can take a deep dive if that is something that has piqued your interest. Abby, how about you? What caught your eye?
I feel like we need to have a conversation about the Harris County Toll Road Authority. I know that is not a bill that ended up passing the ledge this cycle, but I thought that whole entire argument was fascinating. But basically what happened was Betancourt, he's one of our senators who represents the Houston area. He put forward this bill that was going to divert money from the Harris County Toll Road Authority to the city of Houston. And the argument there was that Houston has a lot of the toll roads in its vicinity, that all that money is going to Harris County, and Houston should have a slice of that pie, essentially. And there were a lot of people who viewed it as a cash grab by the city of Houston in terms of plugging the city's budget deficit. I believe at that time we were dealing with a $330 million deficit. So people were just saying that it was an easy way for Houston to just get extra money. And it ended up dying, so that's not going to be happening anymore. But I just thought that whole entire argument was nuts.
Yeah. Which state representative is going to get toll roads out of my life? Okay, that's what I'm going to be rooting for, because I'm done with toll roads. But yeah, Evan, your thoughts on that one?
I mean, I'm a fan of toll roads. I think that toll roads are good. I think all of our freeways should have tolls on them. Yeah,
Evan,
you got to pay for services one way or
come on.
another, and user fees are often a best way to get at it. And the fees should also go up or down based on how much traffic there is. Like if there's a lot of traffic, it goes up. If there's not a lot of traffic, it goes down. We want to have a sense. But that was a fascinating fight. And like the Whitmire administration down at City Hall, they said that they weren't behind it, but then it was later revealed that they had talked about it and wanted it. But the whole thing was bizarre. I mean, first the argument was that, the county is spending toll road dollars on things that aren't specifically the toll road, like some hike and bike trails and other things, and we shouldn't be doing that. And agree or disagree, now the city is using water fees to pay for things that apparently aren't water fees. And so, which is it? Like, are we allowed to do this sort of stuff or not? And then there were some complaints about how the head of the toll road system couldn't answer basic questions, which is a legitimate issue. He did not perform well in front of the committee when he went to the legislature. But the bill wouldn't really fix that. It would just kind of impose new conditions on them. And then it would have diverted money from the county to the city to pay for law enforcement services. But then if you're going to pay for law enforcement with a new revenue stream, like, no way that's ever going away. Like, that just seems very weird, too.
Yeah, it was weird. How did Whitmire approach things when it came to the county?
Mayor Whitmire, who really ran on a platform, his ability to bring people together and work across divides, he picked this fight with the county, and not like progressives who he sometimes bristles with, but like former Sheriff Adrian Garcia, and other commissioners up there who are pretty moderate, were fighting with him over this. And he never went to them and tried to work out a deal or go together arm in arm on something with the county. He just tried to shove this down their throat. It just seems like bad politics. And so he spent all this political capital on a plan that really wouldn't bring that much money, like maximum $80 million a year. And then he burnt these bridges and he got nothing for it. It's like a no good, very bad legislative session for Mayor Whitmire. I just don't understand what the end game was there.
Oh, that's going to be so much fun to watch now. Like, how is that relationship going to play out with the county? Because it is not good right now. And by the way, I'm going to link a story in our show notes recapping the biggest bills that passed, what's next, and also some that failed as well. So if you want to take a deeper dive into what came out of the 89th state legislature, you can do that with the link in our show notes. H-Town really comes alive in spring, and especially in the heart of our city, downtown Houston. There's so much to do, so grab your crew and explore everything downtown Houston has to offer. From their vibrant parks to their sizzling food scene, and of course, those amazing free outdoor events all season long. Want to just gather the family and hang out like I enjoy doing? Downtown Houston has you covered. Head to Market Square Park or Treveley Park for kid-friendly games, movies under the stars, and so much more. To really be in the know, text downtown to 56512, where you'll find maps, the best parking spots, special events, and more. You can also find all of the fun and free events at downtownhouston.org. Spring is here, so come eat, play, and explore in downtown Houston. Get revived and energized in downtown.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Let's get to our moments of joy. Evan, I want you to kick this one off because there was some huge news regarding your career. Tell us.
Well, thank you. I am going to be the next editor for opinion and community engagement at the Houston Chronicle.
Yay!
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you all. It is a real honor. I've been saying I feel a little bit like Clyde Drexler in 1995. I'm going home to join a team of champions.
That is awesome.
I worked at the Chronicle for 7 years before leaving back in 2019, and now I'm heading back. So very excited if y'all are listening. feel free to, shoot me an email, just evan.mintz@gmail.com. If you have any questions or thoughts or whatever it is you want to see in the paper, I want to hear it.
That is awesome. Evan, congratulations. This is going to be so cool. Does this mean you're still going to be joining us or no? Like, are you too big now or what's up? Come on.
I honestly don't know. I need to see what Hearst corporate rules are.
Come on. Well, we've got the Houston Chronicle's Abby Church on with us. I think the Houston Chronicle's Evan Mintz can join us.
Yeah, I think I can keep doing it for a bit. We'll see. I'm very happy.
I love it. Evan, that's awesome. Huge news. Abby, how about you? What was your moment of joy this week?
Evan took my moment of joy. That was just crazy of him to do. But no, I mean, it's so exciting to have Evan back in the newsroom. I know he is someone that everybody thinks super highly of and respects, and he is just such an institutional force. So we're happy to have him back on the team. I think my other moment of joy for this week, I have been a little sick since Thursday, which kind of sucks, but I'm sure you can maybe hear it in my voice, but I feel like I'm finally turning the corner. But yeah, I'm getting better, but I'm just thankful for being able to get better and thankful that budget season is now over so I can continue getting better without having a whole bunch of numbers floating around in my brain.
I was going to say, you deserve some rest. Enjoy the weekend, relax, because it has been a crazy week. And you know what? You deserve to sleep in on Saturday at least. And then you're back at it, all right? Because things aren't slowing down with the news. So good luck with that.
It never stops.
Yeah, never stops. I want to talk about Comic Palooza real quickly because it is coming here June 20th to the 22nd at the George R. Brown Convention Center. You've heard me talk about it if you've been listening to the podcast. This is the biggest pop culture festival in Texas, and it's celebrating comic books, anime, movies. Everybody's going to be cosplaying. It's so much fun. And check this out. They also have wrestling, which I love watching. I know it's silly. I know it's one of those things I get judged on, but they have Texas All-Star Wrestling. They're going to be putting on a show for all 3 days of the convention. How cool is that? So you get to watch some local wrestling. And if that's not enough for y'all, they also have this thing called Full Steel Combat. And this is my insider tip for you. You got to watch this. Here's why. This is knights dueling all weekend long, like actual knights. This is going to be so much fun. Like, where else can you get cosplay, local wrestling, and a duel? All right, come on. That sounds like a good time, right?
I'm super excited. Hayden Christensen is going to be there. Alan Tudyk is going to be there.
Yes.
These are some real fun celebrity folks.
Absolutely. There's going to be panels. There's going to be interactive experiences and so much. But to me, my insider tip for this week, you got to watch Texas All-Star Wrestling and Full Steel Combat. By the way, you can get the schedule of everything that's going down at Comic Palooza at comicpalooza.com/CityCastHouston. Abby, Evan, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Thanks so much for having us. We appreciate it.
See y'all next time.
That was Abby Church. She covers City Hall for the Houston Chronicle and Pulitzer Prize finalist Evan Mintz. All of the stories we talked about are linked in our show notes. Before we end the week, help us grow the show by sharing this episode with 3 of your friends who have students in HISD. If you're new to the show, smash that subscribe button so you can get new episodes every weekday morning, and drop us a rating and review wherever you're listening right now. Need plans for the weekend? We have a great events section on our website at houston.citycast.fm and in our daily newsletter, Hey Houston, which you can subscribe to on our website or with the info in our show notes. Thanks. That will do it for this week here on CityCast Houston. Our producers are Selena C.A. Reynolds, Natalie Rivera, and of course, Carleon Jones. Our newsletter editor is Brooke Lewis. Our executive producer is Laura Isensee, and I'm your host, Raheel Ramzanali. Our music is by the band All the Kimonos, with additional music courtesy of Rob McAllister and Rosedale from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. We'll be back on Monday to talk about the new Netflix documentary on the Astroworld tragedy with the Houstonian who was there and how it changed his life, as well as Houston's festival scene forever. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new.
When you're looking at the city's budget, the general fund, oops, sorry, the cats are being fed. Hold on, sorry.
Put the cats on the camera.
Right now, I need to.
You're good.
I will eventually. Hold on, there's another one that's going to go off, and then I will continue talking about the budget.